Welcome to the GPLama YouTube channel and to another power meter hack video, and one you probably shouldn't do. But this does work with a small compromise. One of the most loved pedal platforms is the Shimano SPD-SL. They're relatively easy to learn and to use. The cleat installation is also very easy, and those cleats are readily available. There's also 3 types of cleats for different float options. So there is a lot of love out there for that pedal platform. There's also a lot of love out there for power meter pedals. So the holy grail a few years ago for power meter pedals that people wanted was the SPD power meter pedal that was reliable, easy to use, and good value for money. And at the time, a few years ago, that didn't exist. With a lot of similarities between the Look Keo and the SPD-SL system, many people made the conversion over to using Look-style cleats with the Assioma power meter road pedals. Favero did release the Assioma DUO sheet that allowed the installation of a Shimano SPD-SL pedal body on their existing DUO pedal spindles. The compromise though with the DUO sheet is the additional 26mm or so of Q factor that was added to your bike fit when using those pedals. If you're a larger rider, that's probably not too much of an issue. If you're a smaller rider, it's an absolute game changer for your bike fit. It's worth noting that the Garmin Rally RS do meet most of the criteria. SPD-SL, they're a power meter, easy installation, but they're expensive, and they also use batteries that are external to the spindle. So the search continues for that power meter that ticks all the boxes. Back in 2023, Xpedo announced their SONIK road pedal that uses the SPD-SL pedal body. Now 12 months later, or a little over 12 months later, they have finally arrived. I have a set right here, and as pedals, they're reviewed pretty well by the Slayer of Grams himself, Tobias, over at Rides of Japan. I'll put a link in the video description below to that video. You should definitely check it out. What's notable here is Xpedo are the brand of pedal bodies that are used on the Assioma road pedal. Yes, that should look familiar. And the SONIK have the same 1, 2, 3 bearing configuration as the Assioma pedals. One of the most popular Assioma hacks before the Pro MX was released was to use the Xpedo SPD pedal bodies on the Assioma spindles to get yourself a power meter for your gravel or mountain bike. So pedal body hacks and swaps do work. And at this point, you know exactly what you're about to see. So let's get to it. Okay, with the Workbench prepared, let's have a closer look at these pedals with the unboxing. 188 grams claimed, titanium spindle, 3 sealed, I'm guessing that's 3 sealed bearings, Xpedo cleats. So they come with 0 and 4 degree float cleats in here. Okay, let's get this open and this experiment underway. First warning I read here is not designed for use of indoor exercise bicycle or equipment up here. If they're not okay indoors, I don't know why they're okay outdoors. Anyhow, let's continue on. Whew, yes, they are very, very light in the hand. Bearings, nice and smooth. Okay, right pedal. Left pedal. Again, a warning about not using these on stationary exercise or spin bikes. Max rider weight of 85 kilos, quite low. Right, we'll unbox the rest in a moment. I just want to get these on the scales ASAP. So 188 grams claimed. $92. 185 coming in just slightly under spec. Okay, they're the pedals and the cleats, which should just simply be Shimano compatible cleats. Well, they look like the same plastic as their Look Keo style cleats, but we're not here for the cleats. We are here for the pedals, and damn, they really do feel light. Let's have a look at the measurements of these. Okay, Q factor as measured by eye, which is going to be pretty close. I'm going with 53. Onto the stack height, which is a little harder to measure. Let's get these out for that job. These are quite low, that is flat across the top here. That should allow me to put that on there. Bring that out to I'd say the stack height is very, very close to 10 millimeters. That's a very low stack height, which has me a little concerned. Is that enough real estate within this pedal body to fit on the these? Now these are the pre-hacked Assioma SPD pedals. So the Assioma DUO spindles and pods, and the XPEDOs, I think these are the M-Force 4s or M-Force 3s, sorry. One of the two. It was a very, very popular hack, although it did require hacking of shoes to have clearance for that spindle. Either way, let's get these taken apart, and we'll go right to right first, and we'll see what we can find. Okay, so end cap has to come off. They are screwed on normally. Nicely greased. Lots of green grease in there. Okay, so far so good. Let's take the pedal body off this one. Okay, it's reverse thread. Okay. I'll do it by hand just so I know it's okay. So that's off. Let's have a look inside here as I pull that out. Okay, it looks like a different end cap there. Oh, that is like an alien sneezed all over it. Okay, so that's the SPD-SL pedal body. Here is, I'll grab the correct one. That's the Look Keo body from Favero, but it's an XPEDO pedal body. So a little different design. That does work on these spindles because obviously it came off a set of Assioma DUOs. Will this go on? I'm going to leave the grease on there. It won't hurt for now. That's the pedal body. Okay, so on to disassembling this one now. And off with that. Different dust cap on the end. Okay, let's have a look at what we're seeing here. Spindle appears to be the right length. So again, still good signs, but we're not quite there yet. Okay. Okay, with leaving the bearings in place, so I believe there's two bearings this side, one bearing this side. Let's attempt just to slide that on with the end cap that's already on these pedals. Oh. Okay, that's very, very close around the plastic there of the pod. But that's very, I'd run that. Now there may be some touching. There may just be a slight amount of touching of that around that pod, but it's so minuscule. I'd be happy to run these if that bolts on as expected. See, one of the bearings has just come out there. That's okay though, because it will install itself when I do that. But the question is, when the bolt goes on there, what will happen? Okay. Oh, that's looking exciting. Okay. My concern is when I tighten this up, it's going to get too snug and stop spinning. Yeah, it's a little bit tight. Yeah, I think we're out of luck. Okay, I'll get this tightened down to spec. 8 to 10 on these. I think I might have to try the other end cap, or the other oil cap they call it. I think this is going to be too tight. Yeah, and the pedal's locked on tight. All right, so that's not going to work. Any tight will start damaging the pedal, the bearings in there. All right. So we'll try that with a different end cap. That side, yes, keep everything standard. Okay, now the end cap isn't coming off that at all.
And if you're wondering, no, that didn't come off. So that wasn't an option I could use.
Right. Now we have two bearings on this side, one bearing on this side. So if I was to remove one of the bearings on this side here, gently, well, that came out pretty easy. I'll just see how much space we have to play with. And when that's snugged down. Still moving. Okay, that's to spec. Okay, so with only one bearing on the inside, that is going to work, although not ideal. Ha! Ha ha! All right. That does work. But I had to remove one of the internal bearings, which really isn't ideal. However, will that work? Likely. The consequences of removing a bearing, obviously there's going to be a lot more load on this bearing here. Can it cope with that? Possibly. Will it require a higher maintenance schedule? Yes, I'd say so. I'm willing to give this a try though. I really am. So before installing these on the bike, I thought I'd run some numbers after taking some measurements of the original Assioma DUO pedal body versus the Speedo pedal body, and just to see what the differences were and why we couldn't use two of those bearings on the inside. Now, all that was off was 39.48, 31.67, so you're looking at just around 2.5 millimeters difference, which is pretty much these little end caps here. Now, here's the end cap that I was using. They call these the dust caps, but in reality, what kind of protection is this metal cap really providing this bearing here? Not a lot, to be honest, I wouldn't think. So out with the tools, and in removing this dust cap, end cap, I can fit the two bearings in and things work. So there is a risk here of, I guess, ingress of water, dust, junk, but these are pretty resilient and I really don't think that was providing much protection anyway. So going with just the bearing onto the spindle there, that's fine. Second bearing is already inside.
Okay, speed run through this section here just to save some time. Both pedals are the same, so I won't show both. Just note though that the right-hand side is reverse thread internally.
There we have it. We have, let's reset that. Okay, original bearing configuration as required. So two bearings on the inside, one bearing on the outside. none of these little, well, dust cap, oil cap, end washers, whatever you call it. So yes, again, as with all things hack, there's going to be a compromise here, I guess, of durability, but I'm happy that these now have the proper bearings in them. Okay, with the shoes that I use for Shimano pedals, I choose to use blue cleats. Will there be enough clearance? Once clipped in, I think there will. Oh, it's going to be touch and go. Question is, can I clip this in? Oh, I can. So, clearance to the pod is minimal, but still there. Okay, float. You probably wouldn't want to use 7-degree float cleats or any higher. That's as far out as it goes. Inboard. Look, it's super close. That's looking okay. If this is to be a longer term solution, I'd be shaving off just a little bit of plastic there from the cleat. It won't affect the clip in at all because the mechanism is back here and on the front, but that is working. Favero, Shimano, standard Q factor, not much stack height. 145, 291, that is super light. Wow. Okay, I didn't expect to be that light for both of these, but there we have it on the bench. That's not an ideal conversion, but there's no play. They work, and we did see that there was clearance, or enough clearance for these to at least try out, so I'm going to be doing that. Okay, now let's get these on the bike with no bearing compromise.
Okay, installation, as always, with an 8mm hex wrench with the Assioma Duos. Snugging them down from the inside, and all good to go. Now the clip in and clip out is nice and snappy, both sides. And just riding along, no scraping, no squeaking. These things, as this layer of grams from Rides of Japan has reported, are almost indistinguishable between the original SPD-SLs. And one thing I do like about SPD-SLs is you can slide straight forward into these, like straight forward. There's no little lip or catch like on Look or Look Style pedals. You just straight in from the front and away you go. Beautiful. Now, one thing I did check after the first ride was where was the bearing pressing up against without that oil retainer / dust cap. So looking a little closer after I'd uninstalled the pedal body, and there is a small lip on the inside of the Duo spindle that the inner race of the bearing sits against, which is exactly what I hoped to see. So it wasn't pressing the plastic up against the outside of the bearing or any part of the bearing and doing its thing. So here's where the bearing sits up against that small lip. Pretty hard to see there, but that bearing turns just fine. So there's no scraping, no rubbing, and no indication of the pedal body scraping on the Assioma Duo plastic either. So all is looking pretty good. Now, one last quick check of the Q factor, which I forgot to do on the bench, but just to verify that nothing had changed here in regards to the Q factor when swapping those spindles out. Single pedal washer, so a millimetre or so on the left-hand side. Center of the pedal, I'm going with 54. It's not 55. 54.5 maybe? Either way, no compromise there in Q factor. Into the great outdoors where it's still winter here in Australia. Well, it was when I was filming this. It's just ticked over to spring here, but we've still got a few weeks of cold weather. That aside, this is about the power meter pedals and the pedal bodies and how they perform. No issues whatsoever. Perfect amount of float, no squeaks, nothing out of the ordinary side to side. Nice and tight, locked in with the blue cleats, which I do prefer. And I was pretty happy with all that. I was actually pretty happy with this ride as well. It was a 50k an hour northerly, and here's the part where I'm heading southbound. So nice and fast. And with these pedals, no issues at all. Dicing with traffic here, playing with some trucks and cars on the Western Freeway. Heaps of time to get past there. It's not something I'll be doing if I didn't have any confidence in the pedals whatsoever. Yep, truck, car. And finally, putting both power meters to the test. Okay, it's clear back and opening a sprint. And a really weird camera angle there with the Insta360 X4. But I guess it's time to get back home and have a look at the data recorded to see how things stack up.
A quick look at some data here on my favourite website, the DCR Analyzer tool, where we can compare multiple recordings as an overlay and see how things stack up. The answer is yes, these are accurate. They're based on the Assioma DUO spindle. We've only changed the pedal bodies, but we do need to verify this by putting them up against other power meters. The secondary power meter, or the baseline power meter, I guess, which I've used here, well, to be honest, the Assioma DUOs are the baseline. This is a test of the 4i's P3 Dual, which I haven't done a full review of yet, and you'll see why in just a moment, but we'll quickly skim through this data because it's looking pretty good. Okay, out on the road, steady state, riding along, reverse sheet patrol, 215, 217. That's pretty close. I'd call that within spec. All looking good, nothing majorly stepping out here on all of this. A few stop starts, 292, 294. Oh, bit of a drop out there from the 4i's. Everything looking good. I'll loop back in a second for another little section here, but sprints, beautiful. Look at that. As opposed to what we were seeing the other day, if you're following along in sequence with my videos, that's looking pretty good. In fact, right here in this last sprint, I think it was bang on, like 5 watts off at 1156, 1151. Absolutely beautiful. So these spindles operating as we expect. The 4i Dual, well, let's take a sharp right, literally, and have a look at what's going on with the right-hand side. When I was out of the saddle, the 4i's reporting a little lower through here than the Favero, and another little section out of the saddle through here. Now, I am really picking through this with a fine-tooth comb, but jumping down to the left-right of the 4i's Dual and the right-hand side Shimano crank, you know the deal. And it's of no surprise whatsoever, the 4i's Dual on the right-hand side reading a little lower right there. And another little section I was out of the saddle through there, and the 4i's reading low here. So yeah, I am really going hard on the 4i's for that. It's one of the reasons I've delayed the review, but yeah. But this isn't a review about the 4i's, it's just verification that the Assioma DUO SONIK, I'm now calling them, are working just fine. That's outdoors. Dataset number 2, indoors. Wahoo Kicker Core 1 virtual shifting on the Zwift Ride with the Assioma DUO SONIKs set to 170mm crank length because that's all that indoor bike has. Early on here, just some 5x5s. It wasn't too far off early on. I did stop and calibrate things. So 237, 232, things were a little bit off. Overall, pretty close though. When I stopped and did a spin down on the Kicker Core, 164, 162.49. Things were a lot closer. How about that? Spin down, did the job there. Into the sprints on the Kicker Core, which usually doesn't do that great with that lower flywheel speed or that gearing, but 1133 on the Kicker Core, 1149 on the Assioma DUO pedals. I'd call that done. So no surprises whatsoever with the accuracy. These, with the conversion, looking a-okay. And I've just realized I'm talking very fast because I've just had my 3rd coffee of the day. YouTube has a slowdown thing as well if you need to use that. Okay, so there we have it, the proof of concept working perfectly. But as I said in the intro, don't do this. You can avoid your warranty. There's possible ingress issues because you've removed that cap. These are probably only going to be good for indoor sessions or fair weather use outside. I will have to have my toolkit nearby to check on those bearings, and I'll have to have some spare bearings as well, just in case removing this does cause some long-term problems. And that's something that I don't know because I haven't tested these long-term. But on the upside, as you saw with the data there, and me physically clipping in with no problems at all, they work, and they work very well. They're an easy install on the bike, they're accurate, reliable data, also which you've seen. And most importantly, there's no compromise to stack height or Q factor on the pedal. And lastly, they're Assioma, which have been on the market now for over 6.5 years and have proven to be one of the most reliable and trustworthy power meters on the market. Now, before signing off today, one question I have for everybody, and I'd like your input in the comments below, and that is the question, are people still looking for this holy grail of power meters? Or is it that everybody's gone out and already got themselves the Assioma DUOs or another power meter solution, and we've forgotten about wanting these SPD-SL power meter pedals? To be honest, the Rally RSs really weren't as popular as I thought. They did tick all the boxes, although they were relatively expensive, but they didn't set the power meter world alight. Now, without any insight whatsoever from Favero, would you consider buying an SPD-SL power meter pedal based on the new Pro spindle? Everything's housed inside the spindle. These test really well, but but they only come in the off-road version for now. If this was to come in a road version, would you be interested? Let me know in the comments below. I'm kind of keen to see where things are at. As I said early on, a few years ago, the holy grail was that road power pedal SPD-SL. There are a few solutions out there, but they, to be honest, haven't been that popular. Not from what I've seen anyway. So I'm keen to know, is there still a demand for these pedals out there? Anyhow, with that, we will leave it there for today. Thanks for watching this one. And if Favero do ever release one of these SPD-SL power meter pedals on that Pro spindle, I'll definitely be all over it and be one of the first to put them truly to their paces. All right, as always, thumbs up, subscribes, you know the deal, and thanks for watching.